it's only going to get worse when Oklahoma goes to the SEC. They thought that the talent gap is similar there, but it is bad, from a talent perspective going to the Big 12 to the SEC. The SEC, obviously, we guys know, much, much more talent in that conference than any other conference in America. So, Oklahoma's got to get there. So just from the outlook of this season, I know we talked a lot about playoffs here. From an Oklahoma perspective, I don't think there's any need to talk about playoffs anymore. Yes, conceivably, if Oklahoma were to beat Iowa State, were to beat Oklahoma State, and then likely Oklahoma State again in the Big 12 championship game, theoretically, they could put themselves in a position to be able to play in the playoffs, or make an argument for themselves to make the playoffs. But just me speaking honestly about this team this year, where I see this team after last week, I don't think that this team. I think this team has a much higher probability of losing the next two games than they do winning a Big 12 championship. Just my opinion. They could come out and play extremely well against Iowa State and Oklahoma State, and I could be wrong. But I think the way they look right now, I would give them much more of an opportunity to lose those two games and not even make the Big 12 championship game, versus being in a situation where they're fighting for a playoff spot. When you look at some of these top teams, they're not. I mean, they're not top 10. I don't. I mean, right now, the way that Oklahoma's playing, I don't know that Oklahoma's a top 20 team right now. Just the way they are. They've got too many holes. They've got a true freshman quarterback. They've got a bad run scheme on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive line isn't as good as it's been in the past. Receiving talent is fine. I think it's good enough to win you a championship. Defensive line, they're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. They're not able to tackle as well as they need to in the open field. They're not able to cover on the back end. I don't think they've coached as well across the board as they have in the past. So I don't know what it is. A lot of rumors about Lincoln Riley potentially or LSU having an interest in Lincoln Riley, and maybe it being kind of reciprocated. I don't know any of that. I do know that he was not on his coach's show, and then wasn't at the weekly press conference this last week. And I know a lot of people were wondering, is there whatever it is, maybe it was a distraction. I know Lincoln Riley came out and said it's not anywhere near as interesting as anyone would want it to made it out to be. So I don't know about that, but if that played into any just lack of focus this week. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Oklahoma bounces back. They had the longest winning streak in the country at 17 or 18 games. I can't remember exactly. That was snapped. They hadn't lost in November in a long time. That was snapped. So got to find a way to come back and beat a really good Iowa State team, which also was coming off of a loss. So obviously they'll be incredibly motivated to beat Oklahoma, team that's played Oklahoma really well, really close over the last few years, and don't really expect that to change at all. So I know there's not a lot of you that's been able to join. I know this is kind of a hard time here at 3:30 in the afternoon. So but that's fine. So I just wanted to come on here and just to have a quick quick video for you guys, a quick pod, just so you guys could just to catch up with everyone. So like I said, I think the next few games are going to be very big for the program. I mean, you hate to say that, just in terms of what what could happen with this team, going forward throughout the year, but the trajectory of next year as well, to see what that looks like. I think one of the things that we've seen over the last, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years is any year that Oklahoma has had a lot of I don't know the word, a lot of notoriety, a lot of, um, they always have a high ceiling, so to speak. But I think anytime that Oklahoma is really either predicted to win a national championship, be number one, and things like that, I think Oklahoma has underachieved. Whereas when they've kind of been the underdog, they've been a little bit better than advertised. So I think it's interesting. Oklahoma, against an Iowa State team this week that has lost 4 games. Oklahoma's at home only a 4-point favorite. I mean, it's not anything that I'm surprised at, but it's very bizarre just to see and mark it down. I don't know that no one wants to hear this, but especially if Oklahoma State beats Texas Tech Saturday, Oklahoma will be an underdog in Bedlam. I don't really remember how long it's been since that's happened, but Oklahoma State will absolutely be favored in this game. And I think those of us that watch Oklahoma State, I think Oklahoma State is the team that Oklahoma wanted to be this year. They're dynamic on the defensive side of the ball. They run the ball well. They seem to be very well coached, specifically on the defensive side. They have a quarterback that's kind of up and down, makes some mistakes, and is very um, inconsistent at times. But he has played winning football. Here, the last few games for them. So yeah, Oklahoma State's the team that Oklahoma really, quite honestly, wished they were this year. And this is no disrespect or no slight to Oklahoma, but it's true. They're running the ball well. They're tackling in space. They have a dynamic defense, best in the league. Maybe not by far, but they're absolutely the best defense in the Big 12 this year. And Oklahoma State is a team that has put themselves in position to not only win a Big 12 championship, but how they've also put themselves in a position to potentially make the playoffs. I would guess that they're probably in the neighborhood of where Oklahoma was this past week, 7 or 8, in the latest rankings, and they were incredibly impressive. I think 63-17 was uh, was the was the score against TCU. So they've put themselves in position, just being pretty impressive. 24-3 over West Virginia the week before. So yeah, they've been very impressive. So I'll go through some of your comments here. Any questions? Yeah, offense was definitely unavailable on Saturday. So yeah, they did not play at the level that they needed to play. 7 points for a large majority of the game is not going to get it done in any conference, but definitely not going to get it done. Um, I think they did give up on the running game, and I think just that I don't know Lincoln Riley's inability. I don't know if it's just lack of confidence in the run game, but his Lincoln's inability to want to dedicate himself to the run game is kind of baffling this year. But yeah, no, they it was given up on, and it was just, I mean, it was hard. It was hard to watch. Definitely agreed. I think that's something that seriously needs to be considered in the off season. There's a few things, but that one's one that's kind of at the top of my list that really needs to be considered. I think to your point, because they've lost out on some recruiting, offensive line recruiting hasn't been as good, in the past couple of years as it was previously, and I think Oklahoma, and we're seeing that from a talent perspective. They're not as talented on the offensive line, and I think part of it's the scheme, just the complication. And one of the things that what they were talking, Teddy and Gabe were talking about is even at the next level, NFL teams don't run a scheme that's as complicated as this. So I think that's part of it, at least not as much as Oklahoma does. So I think that's part of it as well. EJ, thanks for the comment. OU doesn't have packages for adjustment. Be honest, I'm glad we took that loss. It was coming eventually. I don't think the last thing I want to see was getting blown up. Yeah, and I think that's fair, EJ. I think a lot of people don't want to see another playoff loss at all, specifically another blowout playoff loss. And I think that's probably where Oklahoma. I mean, depending on where they got, I think matching up with Cincinnati, that could have been a decent matchup for them based on just based on the talent level. But if Oklahoma would have been matched up against Georgia, would have been matched up against an Alabama, would have been matched up against an Ohio State, I think it would have probably wouldn't have been a pretty matchup for Oklahoma. So I think that's a fair comment and representation, EJ. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I think Kennedy Brooks had around 18, 19 carries, if I remember right. Just kind of looking. Let me pull up the box score here. Um, so actually, I'm sorry, 14 carries. 14 carries for 55 yards um, for for Kennedy Brooks. So definitely not as many carries as he needs to have, without a doubt. And giving up on the quarterback run game wasn't as big of an impact in the game as Oklahoma probably needed it to be. Sheldon Riley needs to hire an offensive coordinator. This is something that I've said over the last couple of years that I think would be beneficial. It's just so hard, and this isn't a knock on Riley at all. Definitely not a knock on him, but just it's hard to be a head coach and do all of the things that you have to be able to do, facilitate a program, be the overall game manager from the sidelines as a head coach, and also be worried about being an offensive coordinator. I think it's there's Steve Spurrier is I think he's the only one that I can remember that has been an offensive coordinator and has also had a head coach and also won a national championship. So I think it's um, I think it's something that needs to happen. I don't think that it will. And the only thing that I can think of is maybe if he hired his brother Garrett to be the offensive coordinator. I just don't think that Riley's one of those guys that would trust anyone to run the offense as well as he does. So maybe that's arrogance. I mean, you could very well say that that's the case, but even so, I would be a little bit. I would. It would be great if it happened, but I would be a little bit surprised if it happened. Megan's still going to win the league. I mean, I hope so. I hope you're right. I don't like. I wouldn't predict it at this point. It's going to be as even if even if Oklahoma beats Iowa State. Oklahoma State's going to be a tough win in Stillwater this year. This is the best. This is the best Oklahoma State team that they've had in quite some time. So would be a little bit surprised at this point if Oklahoma was able to beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, comment if there's a lingering quarterback controversy. I don't think there is. I think Caleb Williams has played extremely well up until this point. Like I said, he is a true freshman playing on the road in a tough environment against a tough team. I didn't maybe think he would struggle at the level that he did, but not completely unheard of for a true freshman to struggle on the road in his first, just big, huge road environment. Keep in mind, guys, he played in Texas, neutral field, at Kansas, obviously not a super tough environment. At home against TCU, at home against Texas Tech. This is his first taste of a real big time opponent on the road. And so expecting him to carry the team or be a strong just to carry the team overall can't is not something that should expect. Oklahoma needs to hire a coach with fire and passion. Let Riley be the offensive coordinator. I mean, I think that's good in theory, but that's obviously something that's never going to happen. But I think the one thing that I would say about Riley is the fire he comes off as soft. I think his comments after the game come off as really soft. I think he was, you know, not putting a whole lot of blame on his team, blaming, talking about how upset he was about Dave Aranda kicking the field goal late, how upset he was with the officials not throwing a penalty at the end of the game when the fans rushed the field, talking about safety. Like, that's all well and good. That's that's not the best flex, I think, coming off of a game where you played really bad and you got exposed. So I think that was, to me, if I'm a player, it's weird. I mean, I think it's weird for my head coach that's the angle. I'm even, I think if I'm a player, I'm even okay with him, you know, throwing us under the bus to the media, saying, how bad they played, how bad everything was. We've got to get better, things like that. I think I would have a little bit more respect than kind of complaining and about stuff like that. That's not really that much part of the game. So